if you didn't notice, over this past weekend, the NFL was inducting 2 Hall of Fame classes. They inducted the 2020 Hall of Fame class. They inducted the 2021 Hall of Fame class. And a question went to Bill Belichick about Peyton Manning, and he said Peyton Manning was the best quarterback he's ever faced as a coach. Now, that's a big statement, because this is a guy who faced Joe Montana later in his career, faced Steve Young, faced Troy Aikman, and yet he said Peyton Manning's the best. And I'm not saying I disagree with him or I agree with him. I'm saying it's quite an accomplishment for one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach of all time, to go and say, yeah, he's the best I've ever faced. Because with Peyton, and I'll say this, you didn't know what he was going to do. He audibled like crazy. There's a great YouTube video, and I encourage you to watch it. And they talk about it, and I'm going to paraphrase the video title, but they're talking to the Colts offensive line. And you have Steve Sable narrating it, and it says, just snap the ball. Just snap the ball. And then one of the Colts broadcasters is like, well, they'll do it when they feel like it, because they're that good, and they have to wait and wait and wait until Peyton makes up his mind. But once he makes up his mind, they take few risks but score more points. That's the thing with Peyton Manning. The guy knew how to beat every defense, knew how to do everything, and he was trained beyond his years. When he was in college, and people were talking about when Peyton came out of college, remember when it was Ryan Leaf as Peyton Manning, who's going to be #1 pick? They said, well, with Peyton, you knew what you had. But Ryan, you had no idea what you're going to have. But with Peyton, you knew this guy is well trained. He has every little bit of information. His father was a quarterback, Archie Manning. And it was just an amazing thing to say. Now Peyton was talking about some players during his Hall of Fame speech. He referenced Tom Brady. He referenced Ray Lewis's speech having 2017 only finishing now. And Peyton's a hilarious guy. But he was referencing the fact that the Hall of Fame is only going to have like 6 minutes to get as much information as they could about their career. He talked about, well, Tom Brady, he's going to have to do his Hall of Fame speech on his Instagram, because there's just not going to be enough time. But saying that you are the best quarterback one of the greatest coaches has ever faced is amazing, and it's a really big honor. Bills, Josh Allen signed a 6-year, $258 million extension. Also, the Bills have threatened to leave. As we said last week, the Bills were threatening to leave because they wanted the taxpayers to pay all the full cost of the amount of a new stadium. Thought that would happen. Justin Jefferson suffers a shoulder injury, and that happens. In practice, it is a shame, but it does happen. Okay, I'm going to recap the Hall of Fame game. It's not easy to say, but let's just say it outright. If you look at the Cowboys, the first defensive drive and the first two offensive drives, they looked really good. They were moving the ball, they could stop you, they did all these little things. Micah Parsons found his way all around the ball. He even got a fumble recovery, even though it was just a bad exchange between Rudolph and Claypool. But Micah Parsons was there. Now, if we're talking about the Cowboys quarterbacks, Garrett Gilbert showed that he had complete. as a lot of people were saying, he's a gamer. He's this guy who everyone said, hey, he didn't have a great training camp, he didn't have this, he didn't have that. He looked really good against the Steelers. Now, granted, not all the star players are playing, but he did look really good. But if you look at Cooper Rush, I was not upset or pleased with Cooper Rush's performance, but I was like, okay, yeah, but it makes sense for him to be the third string quarterback, even though he's been in the league the longest and still struggles with throwing outside the numbers. Now, Ben DiNucci we'll have to get into, because there's a lot to unpack here. But when the subs came in for the Cowboys defense, they didn't look really good. Besides of a few players, Kelvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright didn't do awful, but there's still some growing pains to be in there. As usual, you're a rookie corner in the NFL. There's things you don't know. But if you're talking about the corner, they did very well. Maurice Kennedy looked really good in that game, even though he only played a little bit. He was around the ball, he was trying to make plays, he was making good tackles. He did as well as you could hope. And he's pushing to make that roster. And he's been making plays through the whole season. Through the whole practice and training camp. Now, let's talk Ben DiNucci. Ben DiNucci's problem is this. He's not a good quarterback. At first, he was making a play, he was throwing the ball, and he was trying to avoid the defender. So he threw sidearm, which is fine. That's fine. You're trying to avoid the defender so the defender doesn't knock it down. But then you look at it and you're like, actually, that's second, third time he's thrown the ball sideways, and he's trying to fling it like Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, and I was like, is that just his actual motion? Because if it is, we're in trouble if something happens to Dak or Gilbert or anyone else, because it doesn't work. That was my point. We have to find a way so it works. And the thing that I said was DiNucci struggled because there was a great play done by Brad Smith near the end of the game. It was a 2-minute drill. Ben DiNucci decides to flip it sidearm, and Brad Smith has to dive to get the ball. Where the ball's supposed to be on you more, so you can run up the sideline. Brad Smith had to dive for it to catch it. But DiNucci, I'm not impressed. I'm not even sure he's going to make the roster, because as a fourth-string quarterback on these preseason drills, you're not going to have a lot of time. The good thing for DiNucci is that Dak's not going to be playing, so you're going to have some opportunities. Can you make the most of those opportunities? We'll just have to wait and see. Jimmy Johnson is going into the Cowboys Ring of Honor, as well as he went in the Hall of Fame, according to Jerry Jones, who was on the pregame show at the Hall of Fame game. And that's a great thing for Jimmy Johnson. He deserves to be there. He's one of the best coaches of all time. One of the graphics said on the Hall of Fame game was, at the Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony, said Jimmy Johnson's one of 6 coaches to ever go back-to-back. That's remarkable that he hadn't even been in the Hall of Fame, and he was only one of 6 coaches to go back-to-back in the Super Bowl. That doesn't happen. I don't know why it took him so long, but I'm happy I'm happy he went in the Hall of Fame. I'm happy he's going into the Ring of Honor. Darius Leonard signed a 5-year, $99.25 million contract extension with $52.5 million guaranteed, $20 million a year for the first 3 years. Great deal. Darius Leonard's a great player. He deserves it. He's actually now ahead of Fred Warner, the San Francisco 49ers linebacker. According to Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, Fitzpatrick is going to start preseason opener. What a surprise. They don't really have anyone else, so it's going to have to be Fitzpatrick. We're just going to have to wait and see what that team looks like with bringing some new weapons. Adam Humphries, Curtis Samuel for starters. But we're also going to have to look at what that offensive line is, because they have had COVID or have left or have been hurt. Either way, it's just going to be a wait and see what happens. The Dolphins and Xavier Howard have restructured his contract, which gives him $1 million in incentives for signing, but and $3.5 million in incentives down the road, which his value goes $16 million. His 2021 value goes $16,285,000 to $284. That's about $20,000 more than Stephon Gilmore. But what do you guys think? Did Darius Leonard deserve to get his 5-year contract extension? And what do you think about Jimmy Johnson going in the Hall of Fame in the Cowboys Ring of Honor? You decide.